Welcome to episode 14 of the Hungriest Knitter podcast. I am Rachel, your host. You can find me on Ravelry, Twitter and Instagram as Rachel Lynn C, and you can find the blog at thehungriestknitter.com. Thank you for joining me for this episode. If you're a new or returning viewer, it's kind of a little landmark landmark episode. It's been a year since I started the blog now, so that's pretty exciting. It's pretty cool. Thank you for joining me for the ride. Why don't we start with what's on and off my needles? So I do have one item that's off the needles, and it is a very simple ribbed hat. Here we go. In Tweedy Gray. What a surprise that I would knit something like this. For this hat, I used the Pearl Soho boyfriend hat pattern, and I knitted this in Sublime Yarns Luxurious Aran Tweed, which is a really great blend of wool and I think linen, and I think there's something random in here like camel or something. I really like working with this yarn. I initially planned for this hat to be for me, but I don't really love the way it fits. It's a little, it's a little loose, and it's slouchy, but not enough, if that makes sense. And I can't wear it tight. So I have decided that I am going to give this to my boyfriend. And what I need to do, it fits him alright, except it's a little long. So I'm going to do a little knitting surgery and unbind the cast-on edge and take it back. I maybe like 4 or 5 rows, and then do a sewn bind off on it. I haven't decided what I'll do yet. But I kind of had a vibe when I was knitting it that it was going to be too big. It wasn't working right. But I really liked the way the stitches looked, and I really liked the way the yarn looked, so instead of pulling it out, I kept second-guessing myself and just kept knitting it. I almost completely frogged it once, and then I decided against it, and I should have, but that's okay, because now he gets a hat. So, good for him. So it's a sort of off the needles. It needs a little help, but it's better than nothing. That said, I don't have a new hat. So, on the needles, I decided to cast another one on, and I bought yarn, so more treats for me. So this is another Pearl Soho boyfriend cap. This time I'm doing it in a marled black and white. So I am using 2 skeins of the Pearl Soho line weight yarn in what is basically, actually you might be able to see it better on these sides, which is basically black and white yarn. Let me see here. The Pearl Soho line weight is 100% merino wool. Each skein has almost 500 yards, which is a very generous skein. And I really, really love the feel of this yarn. It's very soft. Kind of reminds me of the Madeline Tosh single ply yarns. And it's really beautiful so far. I love the way it's knitting up. It's very soft. I am knitting this on my Chalgu needles, the bamboo Xiaolus, and I really love them. These might be my new favorite needle. I said this about the Knitter's Pride carbons, but I think it's because it's winter, it's cold, and these get very warm in your hands. But I really, really love the way this is turning out. I just cast it on the other day. It's really pretty, really simple, and it's a super mindless pattern because it's just a one by one rib. So I will keep plugging away on that. And of course, when I bought the yarn from Pearl Soho, I had to buy something else, so I bought this cool project bag, which is by Baggu. It's actually, I think, like a toiletry bag, or you could maybe use it if you have small feet. You could use it as a shoe bag when you travel. But I'm using it as a knitting bag right now. It's the perfect size for a sort of medium-sized project. A pair of socks would be fine in here, but you know, something that uses a few skeins or like a shawl or something, it's perfect. And I love that it has a handle, so you can stand and knit with it on your wrist. I love it. The other thing that I am knitting on pretty actively right now is the Umaro blanket, which is an old Brooklyn tweed Jared Flood design. I am actually knitting this in the recommended yarn, which is Cascade Yarns Lana Grande. So it's a bulky weight, and let me show you what it looks like. I love this stitch pattern. It's really just so beautiful. I love the texture, I love the cable, I love the little bit of lace. It's really lovely. I like how modular and unusual it is. I am knitting this for my niece. I have a brand new baby niece, and she needs a blanket because her brother got a blanket. And right now she's using her big brother's baby blanket that I knitted, and I feel guilty that I haven't given her a new blanket yet. So I'm going to modify this a little bit. I'm only going to do probably four repeats, chart repeats. So far, this is one. I finished one repeat. I was thinking about doing 5, but because this is so deep already, I think 4 will be plenty. The yarn is super soft and squishy, and it's wool, so it's all natural, which I like. I actually bought a long, heavier gauge, what size needle is this worked on? A US 15 or a 10 millimeter needle. I bought myself Xiaogu circular when I picked up the yarn. And I, again, really enjoy working with these. I am loving this pattern. It's not particularly complicated. There's only one style of cable in here. You only do it on 3 rows in a chart repeat, I think. Nope, that would be wrong. I think it's 1, 2, yeah, 3 rows, 3 times in a chart repeat. So it's like very, very low-key knitting most of the time, and then every once in a while you get to do a cable. The pattern is really intuitive. It's a beautifully written chart. It's Brooklyn tweed, which means it's great. I think I want to make another one of these and keep it when I'm done because it's just a stunning, lovely blanket. And it's nice to have something that's on a light gauge and then something that's also in a bulky gauge, so you like see progress happening a little more quickly, at least in my opinion. So that's sort of everything I'm working on like actively right now. So I wanted to share, I've been seeing a lot of really cool patterns come out lately, and a lot of them have been designed by my really good friends. So I wanted to share some of my favorite ones with you, and just to give them a little bump, because I am really proud of the incredible work my friends are doing and designing, and people that I admire and respect. So the first pattern is are the dragon scale mitts. They are designed by my awesome friend Melissa, who goes by Ms. Alyssa on Ravelry. These are a pair of fingerless mitts that have, it's actually a Barbara Walker stitch pattern, and it kind of has a little scallopy design to it. It'd be helpful if I had a picture for you, but I don't. That said, they're really beautiful. They work up great in a variegated or solid or even like a striped yarn. I think it would look pretty cool in. And I must say, based on experience, that my friend Melissa knows how to fit a fingerless mitt perfectly. She has knitted me a pair, and she's knitted a million pairs of fingerless mitts, and she is awesome at it. It's a paid-for pattern, and because it is the sort of pseudo 1-year anniversary of the Hungriest Knitter, I am going to give away a Ravelry digital download of the pattern. All you have to do is leave a comment either on my blog or on the thread in the Ravelry group for episode 14, and you will be entered to win. And I will do a drawing for that on, let's say, March 1st. That gives you guys some good time to watch the episode and get your comment in. Only there's only one entry per person, so you can comment as many times as you like, but that will only count as one entry if you're chatting on the thread. Just FYI. So awesome. I love that pattern. I am probably going to make a pair for my mom soon. The second pattern is the, oh shoot, I don't know how to say it, the Dahlonega, I think, the Dahlonega shawl, which was designed by Karen Michelle, who is I Knit One Purl Two on Ravelry. She's a really great designer and all-around cool lady, and the Dahlonega shawl is this textured crescent-shaped shawl that's designed to be knit either in stripes, so you could use some complementary yarns, or with a gradient, which I think it looks spectacular with the gradient. Of course, it's like all the things I really love in shawl knitting, which is I love a crescent-shaped shawl, I love a textured shawl. It has a great, I think it has like a beautiful edge, a little like picot-y edge on it. It's a really, really lovely design that employs some great, it's a really great design, and it's meant to be used with a beautiful sock yarn, and I think that's fabulous. I have some gradient yarns in my stash right now that I think would be spectacular in this design. So I recommend you check that out, the Dahlonega shawl. And then the third design is another shawl. It's the canopy shawl, designed by Melody, known as Mandarins on Ravelry. And this one is just stunning, stunning shawl. It is a triangular shawl, and it has panels of lace and twisted stitches in it. And I really like that the design goes through the body of the shawl and not just on the edge. I think it really looks fantastic. And those are 3 patterns that are on my radar right now, designed by people who I think are really awesome. They're all paid for patterns. So I recommend you check them all out. I will link to them in the show notes. And like I said, I will be giving away a pattern of the Dragon Scale mitts. So get your entry in. So for On the Stovetop, I have been like running dry on cooking inspiration lately. I don't know why. That said, I do have some ideas, and I've been baking a lot, which is very weird because I don't like to bake at all. But I've had some birthdays and some holidays and things come up that have required me to bake. I end up having more failures in the kitchen baking than I do cooking. I think it's because I get nervous, and I'm required to measure and stuff, and so I always freak out about something, and I think my anxiety shows in my baking, whereas in cooking I could care less I couldn't care less what happens. Like, I'm very happy to be improvisational and try new things, and I feel confident in my ability there, so I never have an issue. It's so weird. That said, I have baked some incredible brownies. I think you should check out this recipe. I believe it's called the Bittersweet Brownies with salted peanut butter frosting. It comes from a book called Date Night In, but the recipe appears right now on the kitchen, and I will link to it in the show notes. You should check it out. It is the most decadent brownie I've ever had. It is spectacular. So it includes browned butter, which kind of makes everything better, right? That like nutty, rich flavor from browned butter. It has wonderful bittersweet chocolate in it that you chop up and melt into your browned butter. And then also cocoa powder. I used a really high quality vanilla extract that I actually made using bourbon. That's got to make it better. And that was fantastic. And then you top it with a peanut butter frosting. I did make a little tweak to the peanut butter frosting. I didn't have peanut butter, but I had almond butter, so I used that. And the frosting recipe calls for almond butter, or nut butter, so peanut butter really, powdered sugar, and butter all whipped together. I didn't think it really needed the butter, so I just sort of whipped up the almond butter and the confectioner sugar until it got fluffy, but I didn't put the butter in it because it already felt so decadent that I didn't want to gild the lily. But adding the butter will make your frosting much fluffier and stiffer, and it'll keep better. The way I made it was a little more runny, but I think it tasted great, and it still worked out fine. And then you sprinkle over the top flaky sea salt. It's like the most intense brownie situation I've ever had. I sound like Leslie Knope right now. Yeah, it was fabulous. Really, really good. So I recommend you check that recipe out. Even a dummy in the baking department like me could make that brownie taste amazing. So I think it's a pretty foolproof recipe. And now I'm thinking about the brownies because they're sitting on the countertop and want to eat them. And I'm going to be baking over the weekend. Some friends and I are going on a weekend trip to stay in a cabin, and we have different, everyone's in charge of a different meal, and I am in charge of breakfast on Saturday. So I will be baking the easy cinnamon rolls from the Minimalist Baker. I really like the Minimalist Baker's recipes for entertaining and for travel, like if you're not cooking in your own kitchen, because they don't use a lot of ingredients. So it's very easy to get them together. Considering that I'm going to need to schlep all the stuff that I need to the cabin to make it, it's great to know that I can get this recipe cranked out really easily, because it's, I think almost all the recipes from the Minimalist Baker are 8 ingredients or less, which is just killer. So I haven't made them yet, but I will let you know how they turn out. Another thing about the Minimalist Baker is that all the recipes are vegan, so that's cool. I'm actually not going to be doing it completely vegan because I'm just going to use regular butter. It's what I have. But it's really awesome. A great resource for cooking for vegan friends. I'm also going to be baking, I completely forgot, I'm going to be baking some gluten-free chocolate chunk cookies. The recipe comes from the TV dinner, and instead of flour they use almond meal, which is going to make them really rich and decadent, and it's another recipe I haven't made before, but I'm going to bake them up before I leave for the cabin so that my friends can enjoy some delicious cookies. They look spectacular. I don't think you can fail with an almond-based chocolate chip cookie. It sounds pretty amazing if you ask me. One more recipe that's been on my radar and I am really excited to make is the spinach and Swiss chard pie from a blog called Witchin' in the Kitchen. I always have in the winter a lot of dark leafy greens on hand because it's one of the only really good fresh vegetables you can get this time of year. And so this is packed with spinach and Swiss chard, but I think I'm going to do a mix of spinach, Swiss chard, and kale because I almost always have the dinosaur kale, or lacinato kale, I think is how you say it, which is on hand. And that's the kale that isn't curly, it's a flatter, darker leaf. It looks a lot like Swiss chard. And because I always have those on hand, I might as well just make it with what I've got. But it's sort of a spin on spanakopita, which is the spinach and feta pie that has a lot of phyllo, and it's really rich and delicious and fantastic. But this is a little less phyllo, a little less feta, and really bulked up with greens, which sounds fantastic. So I bought a package of frozen phyllo dough, and all I need to do is actually let it defrost. I was planning on making this the other night and realized when I went to start cooking that I completely forgot to let the phyllo dough defrost. And you can't you can't quick defrost phyllo, so plans derailed. But it is a slightly time-consuming recipe. You need to melt the butter and layer it in between each sheet of phyllo, and then prep the filling. And you know, there's a few parts to it. So I think it's going to be something I do on a weekend when I have some time to kind of meander in the kitchen. And I'm really excited to do it because it sounds spectacular. And I think it would be great as a really light, a light lunch or dinner, or you could make a little bit of a protein to go alongside it, like a roast. I think a roast chicken with some lemon would be really great with that. So I'm really excited to try it out. And that's sort of everything that's on my mind cooking-wise right now. But I do have an on the town for you today because I can't stop thinking about maybe my new favorite brunch place in DC, which is called Domku, and it is a Scandinavian restaurant in DC's Petworth neighborhood. They have Scandinavian and sort of Eastern Bloc food, and we really like to go there for brunch. And I can't recommend it highly enough because I think the food is fantastic. First of all, they make these really great Norwegian pancakes. A Norwegian pancake is very similar to a French crepe. It's thin, but I guess the difference is it's a bit thicker than a crepe, and I think it has a more custardy texture to it. It's a little more dense than a crepe. They make them either sweet or savory, but the savory ones are the real deal. They have one that has bacon and eggs kind of cooked in it. It's like a really big, like you get this like plate-sized pancake. They cook the eggs and the bacon just right into the batter. That's amazing. But they also do one that has smoked kielbasa, I want to say Gouda, and onions that is just, it's like next level crazy delicious. But if that is a little too heavy for you for breakfast, as it is for me, I just eat it off the plate across from me. There is also a fabulous, really light, healthier brunch option, which they have in the winter right now, which is a spiced quinoa porridge with apple. And so this porridge, I think it's like quinoa and maybe bulgur or barley. There's another sort of grain in there, cooked with milk and water and lots of great like cinnamon and clove and nutmeg and all that business, and almonds. And then they take an entire Granny Smith apple and they stick a cinnamon stick in the middle of it, and they must just bake it or poach it, I think, until it's fully cooked, and then they put that right on the plate. So you cut open the skin and open it up, and it's this fully like wonderfully cooked apple. It's kind of reminiscent of when you take an apple, a raw apple, and grate it into muesli, because you can kind of like scoop out little bits of the pulp and then mix it in with the porridge. It's just the most wonderful, warming. It's got a little bit of sweetness to it. I think they put some maple and vanilla in it, but it's not overly sweet. It's just a really cozy, nourishing, but not heavy brunch item, which I like to find because, you can't go out and eat all the time. And, I don't want to derail a healthy week with like a crazy brunch food. Sometimes, but in moderation. So it's a really, really delicious recipe that I think you should, or a delicious meal. So if you are in DC, I 100% recommend that you check out Domku. It is hands down one of my favorite restaurants in DC. And just FYI, they have really cool, they have Tuesday nights are vegetarian dinner night. And then I believe, I don't know if it's every Thursday or it's the first Thursday of the month, is pierogi night. So the whole menu is pierogies, which is really good stuff, if you ask me. Right, well, I think that's everything I have to share with you guys today. I want to thank you again for joining me, and if you're a returning viewer, thank you for supporting me throughout this last year. It's been really fun to share my knitting journey with all of you, and I love hearing what you're knitting and seeing pictures of what you're knitting. I want to thank everyone who is using the Knit with THK hashtag on Ravelry. It's really cool to see or not on Ravelry, on Instagram. It's really cool to see all the stuff you guys are knitting. I check that hashtag probably once a week and get to see lots of fun things that people are working on, and I love checking in and seeing what you are making. As always, show notes can be found at thehungriestknitter.com, and until next time, stay hungry. Bye.
It is such a good night to kiss. It is such a good night to dance. It is such a good night to Scooby-Doo.